Hey everybody, this is Perch. Saga was a comic that, when it came out for Image, had this. It had a brief moment where people believed this was going to be the next Walking Dead. And Walking Dead is a comic that, hit the scene. It was popular, but it really, I mean, if you looked at the sales videos they did about a long time ago, it had this magical kind of inverse trajectory to what you normally see with comics. It gained readers issue after issue, finally peaking, but it was a long climb, and it was a good climb. And Saga had a similar kind of vibe to it for a bit of time. And the trade sold really, really well. So it was considered this big hit for Image. But it also had this problem where it would go on hiatus from time to time. And, that's a prerogative of the creators and everything else. But it felt like it never quite got to its momentum. The Walking Dead had, very, very limited breaks. It didn't have breaks anything like Saga. I think like a week or two would go by where it was late, but you didn't notice, and I may be even remembering that wrong. The key with Walking Dead, and I think the artist involved in particular, just kept going with a very, very nice schedule. It's funny. I was watching a couple more mainstream comic creators really crap on the Walking Dead art, saying, this is kind of art you get in a crowdfunded book. It's like, okay. First off, it fit the vibe perfectly. And second, don't knock it. That thing went, tons of issues without stopping. I mean, comics should be so lucky. But anyway, Saga looked like it was going to be the successor, and then it never hit that moment. And then went on hiatus. And that's, I think, the purpose behind the mail we got here. It says, hello, Perch. I've been wondering in regard to when Saga went on break for 4 years, it lost interest with the readers. But when Hunter x Hunter went on break for 4 years, there was excitement. When the two series returned, I was more excited for Hunter x Hunter when I read the new chapter than when I read the new issue of Saga. The feeling I got was that the Saga break should not have taken 4 years and can't seem to find a reason besides mental health. But Hunter x Hunter 4-year break was necessary because we were told about the author's horrible health conditions. Is it just me or am I crazy? What is your take on the difference between the two series and how they handled their breaks? Thank you for what you do. Hope you have a good day. Sincerely, a longtime viewer. Oh, thank you very much. I think there's a big difference between the two. There's a lot of differences between the two. First, I think, as you mentioned, and for what it's worth, I don't think a lot of readers really pay attention to the reason behind the break. But Hunter x Hunter did have that. I mean, it was, if you were a fan of the series, you knew that the creator was having some real health issues. And so it felt like a heroic comeback to some extent, that the creator kind of rose past their health issues and got back to doing what they loved. And that was, a lot of people were happy to be on that ride. It felt good. It felt like you were supporting someone who clawed their way back, and that there's something, I don't know, heroic. Probably just plain heroic about that, of someone who fought back and got their health in order, and that's cool. It's a nice thing to see. Saga didn't have that. It was more of just a recharge. And then I don't think that the Saga creators intended to go that long. I think that COVID hit during the middle of that, and then that just kind of derailed things further. But as a break, it just wasn't quite the same in the eyes of the readers. That's not to say, by the way, if you're a creator, the only way people are going to accept a break is by, injuring yourself or having a horrible health problem. But it just it gives an explanation for the break that I think readers can rally behind. So it's more positive for the creator who came back, as opposed to the series that didn't have that problem going on. I think the bigger issue is within the story itself. So first off, Saga, as I mentioned, had a number of smaller breaks where it would go on hiatus for like 4 months or so, sometimes a little longer, and it would come back, and it would do that kind of every 6 issues, and so it had this stop-start mentality, and so it finally stopped, and then it just kept stopped. It felt, people were kind of became tired of it. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And whereas Hunter x Hunter, there was, again, a valid reason behind it, but also you didn't have that stop start kind of thing going on, and so it just felt very different in terms of what the creators were doing, and in the terms of the story flow, you just didn't have that, on again, off again. I think though the biggest reason is that I think Saga actively lost its audience with some story choices. And the biggest is when it took its 4-year hiatus, they basically ended on not exactly a cliffhanger, but a pretty key moment where one of the most popular characters in the book, who is Marco, died, was killed. And that was, I'd say spoilers, but it's been a while. So to the point of this video, it has been several years now. So I think it no longer counts as a spoiler. But anyway, I that's kind of the biggest problem is that you had this Alana and Marco, and that Hazel, the daughter, was the narrator. And I think the creators viewed this as Hazel's story because she was the narrator, but a lot of the readers viewed it as Alana and Marco's story. And there's kind of almost a Romeo and Juliet kind of aspect to it. They were coming from different races that were at war with each other. And so there was an investment people had into the relationship itself. And what happened was, they killed off the dad, they killed off Marco, and then they immediately went on break. And for a lot of the readers of the comic, it felt like they, took a key person that was liked. I mean, of the relationship, Marco was kind of the optimist. He was protecting his family, and he was the one who was, I don't know, playing with his daughter, and he was kind of the more warmth of the group. And Alana was kind of the hard-edged one who was, kind of a little bit more bitter about the whole thing, a little bit more. Just the personality types were different. And so they killed off Marco, and in kind of a weird way, it killed off the optimism of the title. And it was clearly the way the creators wanted to go with it. They wanted to show kind of, a darker world, and then they wanted to, have the daughter, how's this going to affect her and everything else. And it had gotten into this other area. But the challenge was when the book finally did return, there's a little bit of a time skip, or a decent amount of time skip, and then the book kind of steered into just the tone of it changed. It became, I don't know how to describe it. If you're reading the book, you understand, but it became it felt less like a space epic, and it felt more like a little bit of shock value type kind of work, and then the characters, everything seemed a little grim. And then there was the mom, you didn't like the direction the character turned, kind of the cynicism kind of got, not overdone, but it just, the cynicism went over the top a little bit, and it just became not a terribly fun book to read. And, so combined with, you have this book, it's had a lot of breaks. The breaks were getting frustrating even before the really big break, because the book was also heavily utilized the cliffhanger type storytelling model, and so it was doing this as like, now you need to wait, now you need to wait, now you need to wait. There was too much of that, and then they killed off a beloved character who was kind of the heart of the series, and then they took a 4-year break, and then when the comic came back, they did the time skips, they introduced a lot of new characters. The whole tone of the book felt like it was more, kind of dark and embracing just kind of cynicism. And it stopped feeling like a fun book to read. And sure enough, in the sales, it did shed readers. It's just there's no buzz around Saga anymore. I mean, there's a time, and I was, a retailer at the time selling comics where, people would show up to get the newest issue of Saga. It really did have that. This is the new Walking Dead. This is the biggest hit we've got, if you own a staple, just the whole crew around it, the entire kind of vibe of the book was heavily sought after. And then I just watched that energy just deflate like a balloon. And now you go into shops and you're like, how's Saga selling? And it's like, I ordered maybe a copy or two for the shelf. That's it. So it's definitely, I think the break hurt it a lot. In terms of how it was different from Hunter x Hunter, the Hunter x Hunter kept its vibe, for lack of a better word. It kept its feeling of what the story was about. It didn't do this kind of bait and switch with one of its big characters. It didn't come back as a radically different product. It basically felt like a triumphant return of the product you loved. Whereas Saga felt like it just, I mean, for a lot of readers, when they killed off Marco, it's like, all right, jumping off point, we're done. And now you're going to go on a break. Great. You made it even easier to just stop collecting. And that's what they did. So, I don't know. Any Saga fans out there that want to dispute, or what do you think? Every time I do one of videos like this, invariably somebody comes in going, Saga's my favorite book. I don't know what you're talking about. Again, that's cool. That's good for you. But hopefully you can, you would admit that the vibe and attention of Saga has dropped significantly. Like, when was the last time you saw anyone talking about Saga on social media? It's just, I'm sure it exists somewhere. But once upon a time, your timeline was filled up with kind of the cliffhangers in these moments, and now I never see any posts on it. Maybe all of you do. I don't. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.